Picture this: the wild, woolly west of America, 1859. Now, cast your gaze northward to the San Juan Islands, nestled between the US and what would become Canada. Both nations eyed these islands like a child eyeing the last cookie. Treaties were signed, but the wording about as clear as a mud puddle. British settlers from Vancouver Island rubbed shoulders with American frontiersmen, a recipe for, shall we say, spirited debate. And what better topic for debate than a boundary? Specifically, a boundary neither side could quite agree upon. Add in the occasional glower across a fence post, and you have the makings of a diplomatic doozy. The British had a large presence on Vancouver Island. The Americans were staking claims south of the 49th parallel. The San Juan sat there like a prize pig at a county fair, tempting both sides. The Oregon Treaty of 1846 aimed to settle things, but it only muddled the waters further. The island's joint occupancy, it declared, which, as you can imagine, is a bit like having two bears share a honeypot. Messy doesn't even begin to describe it. Into this volatile stew of territorial tension waddled a rather unfortunate player, a pig. Not just any pig, mind you, but a large black boar belonging to a British fellow named Charles Griffin. Now, Mr. Griffin was a man of simple pleasures, a spot of tea, perhaps a biscuit or two, and the company of his prize pig. This pig, however, had a penchant for straying, and stray it did, right into the potato patch of one Lyman Cutler, an American farmer with a notoriously short fuse. Now, imagine the scene. Cutler, a man who likely wrestled bears for breakfast, discovers Griffin's pig merrily munching away on his spuds. A lesser man might have shooed the creature away. Cutler, however, was not a man of subtle diplomacy. He grabbed his rifle and, with a sound that echoed through the islands, put an end to the pig's potato-pilfering days. One can only imagine Griffin's reaction upon discovering his prize hog not at the trough, but rather tragically deceased. What began as a minor property dispute, fueled by piggish greed and a farmer's temper, would soon escalate into an international incident of truly epic proportions. News of the pig's untimely demise travelled faster than a hare on a hot date. The British, aghast at this act of porcine homicide, demanded justice. The Americans, meanwhile, adopted a shoot first, ask questions later stance that did little to de-escalate the situation. And so, like a scene from a particularly absurd opera, both sides decided that the only sensible course of action was to send in the troops. The Americans, led by the wonderfully named Brigadier General William S. Harney, dispatched a company of infantry to San Juan Island. Not to be outdone, the British, under the command of Governor James Douglas, countered with a detachment of Royal Marines. Imagine, if you will, these two groups, faces grim, marching toward each other, ready to defend their respective nations' honour over a pig. It was a standoff for the ages, a testament to the glorious absurdity of human conflict. Now you might expect a tale of bloody battles and daring charges, of cannons roaring and flags waving. But the pig war, dear listeners, was not your typical war. Oh no, this was a war fought with tea and crumpets, with shared tobacco and tales of home. You see, the soldiers on both sides, while undoubtedly prepared to do their duty, found themselves in the rather awkward position of, well, rather liking each other. They shared rations, swapped stories, and even engaged in the occasional friendly game of cricket. The officers, meanwhile, found themselves in a diplomatic pickle. How do you wage war over a pig when your troops are busy exchanging pleasantries and sharing recipes for plum pudding? Word of this bizarre non-war eventually reached the higher-ups, who, one can only assume, reacted with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. Cooler heads, thankfully, prevailed. The pig, alas, remained deceased, but the incident served as a rather pointed reminder that sometimes, even in the face of international disputes, a bit of common sense and a shared laugh can go a long way. The Americans and British, after much diplomatic wrangling, agreed to a joint military occupation of the island, which lasted until 1872. Finally, in 1872, the matter was settled through international arbitration, with Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany awarding the islands to the United States. The Pig War, despite its rather ludicrous origins, had a lasting impact. It highlighted the importance of clear communication and diplomacy in international relations. It also showed that even in the face of potential conflict, a bit of humour and understanding can go a long way. So, the next time you find yourself on the brink of an argument, remember the pig war and ask yourself, is it really worth going to war over? And subscribe for more.